What's good, math family? In today's video, we're going to be looking at linear equations in the slope-intercept form. I'm going to review the most important skills you'll need to pass this topic. For us to be successful at linear equations and slope-intercept form, we have to know how to graph lines, right? In standard form and slope-intercept. So this is standard form. If we wanted to graph, we would set the other variable equal to 0. So if this was equal to 0, we would have 2x is equal to 6, and then we'll have x is equal to -3. So at -3, 0, right here, this would be our x-intercept. Then we go back, repeat the same thing for the y. So now x is 0. All we have left is 3y is equal to 6. Once we divide, we get y is equal to 2. And just remember, these are ordered pairs. So this is 0, 2. And like I said, this is -3, 0. So at this point, I go ahead and I put my 2 points, and now I'm able to actually graph a straight line. So this is one method for us to graph, right? Now, with this method as well, we have to understand how to find the slope. So we could find slope by rise over run. So we know we went over 1, 2, 3. So my run is 3 and my rise is 1, 2. So if they ask me for my slope, m would be equal to +2 over 3. That's one way for us to find a slope. Now, let's say if we chose the other method of graphing, which was switching from standard form to slope-intercept form. Anytime you go to slope-intercept form, we're trying to get y by itself. So the first thing you want to do is move x to the other side. If x is positive, you subtract. If it's negative, you add. So after adding 2x, we're going to have 3y is equal to 2x plus 6. Now I divide by 3 to get y by itself. Oops, put 3 here. And our final equation is y is equal to 2 over 3x plus 2. And if you notice, right, slope is the same, y-intercept is the same. But problem number 2 is going to be a little bit different because we're not going to use rise over run. We're going to graph this equation right here, but when it comes to determining the slope, we're going to use a different method than the rise over run. So if we go by intercepts, right, this is y is 0, so x is equal to 12. And always make sure you pay attention to how they label it. So this graph is labeled by 2. So if x is equal to 12, it's going to be over here. So we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. We have 12, 0, right? So this is the x-intercept. Now we go back, do the same thing for y. So x is 0. We have 3y is equal to 12. Once we divide by -3, we know that y is equal to -4. And this ordered pair is 0, -4, right? So we know -2 is here. Here goes -4, right? So at this step, we were able to actually graph this line. But because the way the axis is labeled, it's probably hard to use rise over run to determine what our slope is. So what's another way we could do that? Well, let's use the slope formula, right? y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. This is why this is so important for when we have specific points. So now we go in, right? We have 0 minus 4, right? Make sure that's -4 over 12 minus 0. So we get +4 over 12. And when we simplify this, right, because it's a fraction, we're going to get 1 over 3 for our slope. So we know m is equal to 1 over 3, right? Now, another way we could double check or just try to make sure that that is correct is just switching from standard form to slope-intercept form. So let's say we did solve for y, right? So let's say we go right here. We have -3y is equal to, remember, we always move x first, -x plus 12. Once I divide by -3, right, my slope is now positive. So I have y is equal to x over 3. You don't have to put the 1 minus 4. So when we look at this, right, slope is the same, 1 over 3. y-intercept is the same of -4. But now that we've got that down pat, now we're going to understand how do we actually write the equation of a line where there is no graph. Another key thing we need to know is how to write the equation of a line when we're only given the y-intercept and the slope. So when we look at the equation, y is equal to mx plus b, right? We know y and x are always going to kind of stay the same. That's part of the equation, but m stands for the slope and b is the y-intercept. So when they give us the information, they telling us what the slope and y-intercept is, we just plug it in. Meaning, if I look at this information, the equation of the line would be y is equal to -3 times x plus b, but b is negative, so -5. Now, math family, I know, how will we graph this? Anytime you're graphing in slope-intercept form, you always start off with the y-intercept, okay? So now we're at -5, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I know I have a negative slope, so my line should be on a decline. So if we're trying to figure out what's the next point, right? I know my slope is 3/1. I'm going to go down 3, 1, 2, 3 over 1. So this would be my new point, and then we could draw a line through both of these. So this is just a quick example of how we would graph in slope-intercept form, but we're going to look at more than one example. Now we're on the next problem. They changed the y-intercept, they changed the slope. How do we graph it? So same process. Y-intercept is 6. So we go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We know the slope is 1. So let me tell you another tip when we talk about positive slopes, right? So positive slopes should run on an incline. So let's say this is 6, right? And we have a slope of 1. For us to get the next point or use the rise over run for a positive slope, we're gonna go to the right, or how should I say? So for our rise, we're gonna go up and we're gonna go to the right, right? Or we could go down and to the left. So this slope right here, if we went down 1 over 1, here's another point, right? Now, if we went the other way, up 1 to the right 1, this is how we'll get a positive slope. Now, for negative slope, the relationship is the opposite, right? So if we have a negative slope and this is our first point, what we're going to want to do is the opposite. So we want to go, oops, drew this wrong, guys, my bad. Hold on. For a negative slope, I'm sorry. What we want to do for here is go down and to the right or up and to the left. So with this same problem, right, we go up 1 over 1, we're on the same line. Down 1 over 1 to the right, we're on the same line. So if you struggle with knowing what direction to go for positive and negative slope, this is always going to help you. So now let's focus back to this, right? It's a positive slope, so I could go up 1 over 1 to get a point right here, or I could go down 1 and over 1 to get a point right here. And now I have 3 points, only really need 2. Now, the most important part of this video is this. How do we determine if a point falls on a line? And I'm going to show you. So let's say they gave us the point -2, 1, right? So after we write the equation, because we have to write the equation, right? We know the equation for this is y is equal to what? Just 1. We don't need to put that. We just put x plus 6. This is the equation for this line. Now, with that said, we're just going to plug it in. So they're telling us, hey, will this work? Meaning when x is -2 and y is 1. So let's plug it in. Y is 1, x is -2. We just plug it in. So 1 is equal to -2 plus 6. No, that's 4. So we should know that the point 2, -2, 1 does not fall on that line. Now let's go to the point -1, 5. So now we're saying that when y is 5 and x is -1, right? Are we going to have a true equation? And we'll know that 5 is equal to 5. So it's a true equation. So when we have true equations, that means the point does fall on the line. And now I have one more example that you need to see because we need to understand how to graph these lines when there is no y-intercept. So this problem here, you're always going to see it on some type of exam, and it's much more easier than you think. Anytime they say that b is equal to 0, or they don't even include the b, that means that this line is going through the origin, which is just the middle, right? And based off the last problem when I told you, hey, this is how we go to find the second point for a positive slope versus a negative slope, we know here if it's a negative slope, we either go down to the right or up to the left. So now we use our slope and it's telling me, hey, you're going to go down 4/5. So let's say I went down, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I go over 5. Let's do it this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my point should be somewhere right here. Now, if I went the other way, up 1, 2, 3, 4, and then over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, will probably be somewhere right here. And I'm just estimating, guys. Don't beat me up. All right. And then once we draw a straight line, we'll notice that all three of those points are gonna be there for that line. So just please make sure that when the y-intercept is 0 or they don't include it, you understand that that line is going through the origin.